Hello, welcome to my crash course about React. I'm Dmitro Vasilyev, a senior front-end engineer with more than 9 years of professional experience in the developing web applications. I will be your instructor for this course, where I will teach you React from the very beginning. We will discover React by building a real web project on practice and explain all the React fundamentals step by step in details. The goal of this course is to help you become a React developer and feel more confident in building interactive and dynamic applications with React. Don't waste any time, join me in the next videos to learn more about how to work in this course, and then you can go to the next section where I will answer on some important questions. What is React, why you might need to use it, and how to build your first application. Hi, in this video I will share with you what the course requirements are, but they are very minimal. No any knowledge or experience required. I will teach you React from the very beginning. All you need is a basic knowledge of JavaScript. If you know it, feel free to enroll to the course. But if you don't have this knowledge, I have created a well-organized document that will tell you exactly what JavaScript knowledge you need and provide links to useful resources where you can read more about it. You can prepare for the course before you start or doing it in parallel and using resources when you need them in a lesson. Hi, in this lesson you will learn how to download the code sources for the application and for every specific lesson in case if something doesn't work for you and you just want to continue or probably want to download and see how it should be and compare and fix something. So you need to open the resource links for the repository with the code sources, and here there is your folder structure. This is a resource called in the GitHub where developers normally store their projects and can share with other developers. And below you can see the instruction I write especially for you. Here we see the section about the download the code source, and you see two possible options: download code source for the final applications, it's download the ready application you will get by the end of this course. Or you can also download code source for every specific lesson. And the next section, there is how to open project in the Visual Studio Code. You see it's a screenshots. And then a section how to start an application. Let's start. Okay, I want to download the final application. You need to open the repository page. It will be the same page you see here. And then you need to click on the green code button you see on the screenshot, and then click on the download zip archive. And I click here, and you see it's downloaded. So the next section you need to look at how to open project in the Visual Studio Code. You need to open the archive you downloaded here. Then you need to open Visual Studio Code and click File at the top bar of your computer and open folder. And after you choose the project, you click Open and you will see that your project is opened in the code editor. The next case, if you want to download code source for specific lesson, you need to open commits page. You can also find this commits page here. You see 21 commits, yeah? And you will click on it and you will see the commits. Commit is every change to this repository. In our case, every change is every lesson. And you can find the list of the lessons here. And for example, I want to download code source for this lesson. And I click on this icon, browse repository at this point. And you see I redirect you to a specific lesson because the URL has changed. Yeah? And I click code and click download zip. And you see the new folder is download. And then the action is the same, just unarchive it and open in the Visual Studio Code. Let's back to the React crash course. And then you want to run an application. You just need to install the dependencies using npm install command. It will install all the libraries we used in the project and then use npm start to run the project, and it will be opened under this URL. Also, there is a small life hack. For example, if you want to see what the code was changed from the one lesson to newer lesson, yeah, you can just open a lesson and you will see here the files, and here you see the editor, and the red highlighted lines is a new lines were added, and the red ones it what was deleted. And you can understand what exactly I added or delete in this lesson. Okay, I hope it's clear for you. If you have any questions, please write me in a direct with the questions. I will answer it. And see you in the next lessons. Welcome to the Getting Started section. Here you will learn what is React and about its key features such as JSX, virtual DOM, component-based architecture, and one-way data flow. You will also start setting up your development environment and everything you need to create React application. I will share with you the most simple way how to do it in one command. You will get to know everything about application structure, about files and folders React application has and why they need it. Also, you will learn React and browser developer tools and get to know why these features are so useful for React developers. Let's get started. Hi, in this lesson you will learn what is React framework and what is the key features React has which makes them so popular. Let's start. React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. And when I say user interface, I mean any application you open in an iPhone or when you open a web page and click something. Yeah. React was created by Facebook to make it easier to build complex applications which are dynamic and interactive. When I mean dynamic interactive, I say application like this, where you can search, you can choose open date picker, choose some dates, do some another changes in your interface. Before, React managing updates and changes in web pages was really complicated and slow. But when you use React, it makes this process much easier and faster. This is what you need to know about React. It was created to simplify developers' life by easy creating complex application and speed up process and of course the performance of the pages. Let's talk now about the React key features. The JSX, one-way data flow, virtual DOM, component-based architecture. We will talk all about it in this lesson. Let's start with JSX. It's a syntax extension for JavaScript that looks like HTML. Can you imagine you can write your HTML code and put the variables inside of it to dynamically show or hide some information? JSX allows you to write HTML code in JavaScript files. It really simplifies the process of creating interactive web pages, make it more cleaner and readable. Now let's talk what is a DOM. DOM is a document object model. It's needed to organize and access elements on the web page. It's a JavaScript object that contains all the elements you have in your HTML, like paragraphs, link, images, list, and other elements. On the left picture, you see HTML code, you see body, paragraph, inside of the paragraph you see href, it's a link. And on the right side, you see the DOM is a tree structure, which exactly the same you have in a HTML, but in another representation. You also have the body element. It contains the children's like paragraph, div, and list. And you see the paragraph also contains a link inside of it. So it's just a tree representation which contains all elements you have. So DOM allows you to use JavaScript to find, add, update, and delete elements without reloading the page, because it's really important when you choose date on your website when you book a hotel. You don't want your website will be reloaded and you will wait 3 or 5 seconds. You want it happen immediately and you click another control. And DOM allows you to do it, but it can be slow when you have a lot of changes at the same time. This is one of the disadvantages of DOM. And now we're gonna talk with you about virtual DOM, a bit of improvement of the DOM. The virtual DOM is a lightweight copy of the real DOM. And why it's needed? It helps update the web page faster, because it groups changes together and reduces some extra work. Let's talk about it. On the left side you see the virtual DOM, and on the right you see DOM. And all changes in React you do first apply to the virtual DOM, and then virtual DOM groups them together and apply it to DOM to reduce some extra work. So imagine you change the paragraph on your web page, and then you change some list item, and then you change another list item. Like we have 3 changes at one time. And what DOM do? DOM groups these actions together. It compares the virtual DOM and real DOM and try to find a difference. And when you find a difference, it updates only changed elements in the real DOM, as you see here. Now let's talk about the component-based architecture. It's a way of building interface, breaking them into small pieces of code, which called components, such as button or form or another element on your page. Imagine you have a web page, and component-based architecture really make it easier to build complex applications. That's because it's made up from the small pieces of code which we call components, which helps keep code organized and reusable. You see, we have here some blocks. Imagine it's a component, and this is a menu component, banner component, and product component. And we have like small pieces of code, these components, and then we just put them into the page and can reuse and combine together, and it simplifies the building of applications. And each component can have its own state and behavior. Let's now talk about what is a one-way data flow. It's really important. It means that data goes only in one direction, from parent to children components, as you see on the icon, or like here. It's needed to keep the data flow process simple and easy to manage. Like you see the parent component, imagine it's your web page, it has some data and you need to share it to the children component, like menu or some, I don't know, product card, and you share data from the web page to these components. But how components can work with this data? Can they change it? So the child components cannot change the data directly. They must request these changes from the parent through the events. Like when the children component, like menu, want to change any information the parent shared with him, he do a request, send an event, change this information, please. And it helps us to have like one source of true data in a parent component. This is all I want to share with you in this lesson. Now you know what is React, why it's needed, and what is the main feature of the React. The virtual DOM, how it helps to apply changes faster, how the JSX, how to manage the different information dynamically, how the component-based architecture helps us organize much easier the piece of code in your application, and how the one-way data flow allows us much easier control the sharing data between the components. So see you in the next lesson. Hi, I really hope you enjoyed it, and just want to say that your thoughts are very important to me. I would love to hear what do you think about this course. If you have a moment, please share your feedback and experience by leaving a review. In case of any questions, don't hesitate to reach me out in a direct message, and see you in the next lesson. Hi. In this video, you will start setting up your development environment. Everything you need to have to create React application. We need to have a few things. The first is the Visual Studio Code Editor. Visual Studio Code is very popular code editor. It's free, powerful, and have a lot of useful extensions, which make developers' life much easier. Just visit the website of the Visual Studio Code and click Download. The website should automatically suggest you the right version for your operation system, but you also can choose a Windows, Linux, or Mac here. Okay, download and install it. The next thing we need is Google Chrome browser. It's the most popular browser for web developers. We're gonna use it. Click download link here and it should also download the right version. Okay, we also need Node.js environment. It's an environment in which programs or applications can be executed. Node.js also has installed npm, which is a package manager for Node.js packages. In easy words, it's npm we will use for install React library, some libraries for React, or some other libraries we will need for our application. So just click download it here, we will use the latest version of it, and follow the instructions to install it. Okay, I already have installed all these things, and after you also finish it, please open the Visual Studio Code and click Terminal and New Terminal. We need to check you have successfully installed the Node.js and npm. Just type node v, this command, to check, and you will see the version you installed, and the same do for npm. And you see the version used for npm. Okay, now click this code settings and settings again, and I'm gonna share some Visual Studio Code settings I use for my for my code editor, and click this icon to see the JSON configuration. So let's start from these commands. As terminal integrated font size, I use the 13 font size, which will increase the terminal font size, because by default it's a bit smaller. The same for the editor size. As you see, I also use it a bit bigger, and the window zoom level will increase a bit size for the editor controls. Like, as you see, by default it's smaller, and I make it a bit bigger. I also use some custom theme for Visual Studio Code, because without it, it will look these colors, and I prefer Atom One Dark theme. If you want to install it, you can click on this extensions icon and download some extensions. Also in this lesson, I will mention the list of extensions I use, so you can go through it and download and install extensions you like. Okay, see you in the next lesson. Hi, in this lesson you will learn how to quickly create a React application in one command, which is ready to run out of the box. It means you don't need to install or configure tools like Webpack or Babel. They pre-configured and hidden, so you can focus on the code. We will use script to create React application. Just visit the website and click Get Started. So this command will do everything under the hood. It creates a React application folder, install all needed dependencies, create some basic files we need. Just copy it and open Visual Studio Code. Click Terminal and start a new terminal to run this command. But before we run, we need to be sure we are in the right folder where you want to have this application. So I keep all my applications under projects folder, and I open it and just paste the command. And this is the name of this command, and my app is the name of the folder for this application. Just specify the name you want. I will use the course name, React Crash Course, and click Enter. The installation process can take a few minutes. So let's check what packages we are installing. We installing React library. We also installed in the React DOM library. It's needed to work with document object model, at least for rendering the React application. And we also installed in React scripts. Its package contains some scripts and configurations which is necessary for building, running, and testing our application. So as you see, it's still installing, but let's wait. And I can explain the main commands we can use to run and build the application. Okay, it's finished. Congratulations. So if you want to run your application in the browser, just use npm start. The npm run build command can be useful if you want to build, prepare your files and application for production. It will build the production version with some compressed files. The npm test command can be used to run tests. So now we can go to our application and run npm start command. So our application is running, and congratulations. But for example, if this command doesn't work to you and you face with some issues, for example, you don't see a progress in installation for 2, 3 or 5 minutes, it means you face with an issue. In that case, you can try to install the latest version of the npm. So you first need to kill a terminal because it's blocked and open a new one. So go to projects folder again, or your folder where you have your application, and you need to remove the folder we just created using this command. After you remove the folder, you need to install the latest version of the npm globally via this command, and then again run the npx script to create the application. If it doesn't help to you, you can repeat the same steps and just install the npm 6 version. So it should definitely help. Okay, I hope everything works to you, and see you in the next lesson. Hi, in this lesson you will learn about files and folders in your React application. You will know what do every file and every folder. Switch to Visual Studio Code and click Open Folder. Go to Projects and choose your application folder. Okay. So in the left side you see a sidebar with all the folders and files. You can expand it. So we will start with the source folder. The source folder is main folder where you mostly will work. You see 3 files with app name. It's one of the component. It goes up. In the app.js you can see the implementation of this component. It's React function. And in app.css you can see styles used for styling this component, and app.test, it's some tests which you check, that component just renders. You see next to files, index files. Index.js is the main entry file where you will render your React application in the DOM. You can see we here use the React DOM library to create a React application in the root container. And index.css, it's file where you can see you can add some global styles for your application. Logo.svg is just image file you see here in a website. Report Web Vitals, it's scripts which can measure application performance. And setup test, it's file where you can configure your test setup. So let's start with the root folder, .gitignore file. Pay attention, it starts with dot, which means it's a configuration file. And inside of this file, you can list untracked files that shouldn't be stored in Git repository. Git repository is a place where you can store all your code base. You can share it with your teammates. You can see the history of your changes, switch between it, and etc. So, and in this file, you mentioned files and folders you don't want to store in this repository. Package.json, here you can find some useful scripts to run your application, to build your application, to run tests. You can also find the name of your application and the version. Also, you see here the dependencies, it's packages you install like React or React DOM library or some other libraries you need to run your application. And you also can see here are some configurations for plugins. Package log.json file. It's automatically generated file, and it provides some detailed information about all dependencies and the versions you have, like dependency and its version, and some installation details. This file helps npm to install exactly the same dependencies versions on different machines. README file is used for project summary or some instructions. You can share with your teammates how to set up your project, how to run it, how to run tests, and etc. We also have public folder. This folder contains some static assets like images, fonts, or main HTML file. Static means those files shouldn't be modified or processed during the build of application. It means they will be used as is. The favicon icon you can see in your application in the browser tab. The index.html is the entry point to the application in the browser. Here can be included some favicon files, some meta information, some images. Also, you see a deal with ID root. In that place will be rendered your React application. Also, you can see these logo files, if you mention. So they are in different resolutions, and they can be used for mobile devices or higher resolution displays like Retina, which is used on MacBooks to have a better quality. Manifest.json, it's some metadata used for mobile devices, and in case user adds the website as an application icon. And robots.txt file used to tell search engines like Google which pages should be publicly accessible and which should not. You also can see Not Modules folder. It's a folder where we store in all our project dependencies like React, React DOM libraries, some other libraries need to run an application or you will install later. So now you know the meaning of every folder and file in our React application. See you in the next lesson. Hi, in this lesson we will clean up a bit our React application from not necessary code. I mean, we will remove some React code examples we won't use. Let's open first app.js file and clean up everything inside of the main container. And provide here the course name. Okay, now remove logo.svg file, we want to use it, and also remove the import of this file in app.js file. Okay, let's switch now to the app.css and we will copy paste some styles to the body. Let's copy this background and min height and open index.css and add it to the body selector at the bottom. Also back for a moment and copy also cover and provide it here and save. So okay, now back to the app.css and we will need to clean up almost everything except the first selector and also clean up it inside. And we'll add some styling to make look it nicer. Okay, let's set max width of 960 pixels to limit our content width and also add margin 0 auto to centralize our content by horizontal and also add some padding. Okay, we finished. Let's run our application to check everything works fine. Be sure you are under project folder and run command npm start. Okay, you see everything works. See you in the next lesson. Hi. In this lesson, you will learn what is a browser developer tools, how to use it, and why we need it. We will start from Chrome browser developer tools. They let you edit pages on the fly and diagnose problems quickly. Let's switch to the Visual Studio Code and run your application using command npm start. And it will automatically open it in your browser. And to see the developer tools panel, you can do right click on your mouse and click inspect. It will be opened, or you also can click view in your browser, developer and developer tools. If you use Safari or Firefox, it could be a bit different. Let's explore the main functionality developer tools has. The first tab is elements. And here you can see your HTML structure. You can expand the elements to see what is inside. You can also edit. and you see the changes are applied. You can change any CSS styles in this tab as well. Also, we have inspect element mode, and if you hover on the elements, it will be highlighted. It's really useful when you have a site with a deep structure and you can hover on the element and it will be displayed here in the structure of the HTML and you can quickly edit it. We also have a response mode, this icon. And if you click it, you can simulate how it looks on the mobile device. For example, currently it's iPhone 14. You can also change it to iPhone SE, or you can manually add other devices you need, or just enable the responsive mode and you can control the dimensions of your website. It's really useful when you're developing the responsive web application. You can also rotate the application, so it's really useful. Okay, the next tab is the console. In the console tab, you can view some logged messages, for instance, logs from your application, warnings or errors, and you can also able to run some JavaScript code, for example, alert message. If you run the alert. So next tab is network. The most common use cases for it is to making sure the different assets like images or CSS or JS files are being loaded. If we refresh a page and click all here, you will see there is some JS files was loaded, the favicon, the logo, again logo, the manifest JSON. So you can inspect here what is loaded. And for example, if we open any other website like React documentation and click inspect network and refresh page, we will see a lot more resources here. And we can filter on fetch or XHR request, is mostly API request. And we can inspect, see the general information, what is the URL of the request, what is the method, it's successful or not, the status code. Also, we can see the response headers and request information. So when you click preview, we can see what is the response back. Yeah, we can also click response tab and it will be in a different mode. So it's really useful when you debug your application. Okay, let's back to our application. The next tab I want to talk is application tab. It's also really useful because in the application tab you can test cache. You can also see your local storage. You are able to add some elements here as the same. You can manage your session storage, your cookies, your cache information, and it's really useful. So we covered only most useful, and if you want to learn more about these tabs, you can go to the documentation and check. Let's install React Developer Tools. Please open link with the React Developer Tools from the resources, and you will see, I will close the inspector. So this is the inspector tool for the React application where you're able to inspect your components, to see the components props, to see some hooks information, also to see the state of the component and change it. You're able to install it for different browsers. I will install it for Chrome. Just click add to Chrome and add extension. Okay, it's added. But it's not pinned. We need to pin it here. It will be visible. And now if you back to our application and just refresh page, you see the icon now is enabled and we can click on it. So the page is using the development build of React, it's fine. And when you inspect your page again, you will see few new tabs, the components and profiler. Let's back to components tab and click on our application. We have only one component. It doesn't have any props. And it's maybe not a good example, but here you can see if you have more components in your application, you can see the tree of these components and inspect it. So see you in the next lesson. Welcome to the component creating section. Here you will create your first React component. You will learn about naming conventions for component and how to import and export them to keep in the separate files. Also, you will learn about features of the JSX syntax, how to display different information, variables, and even JavaScript objects inside of the JSX. See you in the lessons! In this lesson, you will learn how to create a React component. You will create the product card component, which will contain inside the product title, image, some description of the product, and button with a price. So let's create that component. You need to open app.js file and we will create component here. Every React component is a JavaScript function which returns a JSX. JSX could be, in our example, the default HTML. Okay, let's specify the function name and we need to provide the name of the component. Remember, React component names start with a capital letter and it's called the Pascal case naming style. So product cart. Okay, and we need to return some HTML. I will paste the prepared HTML for this component. Okay, if the HTML is not fit, it don't fit the under one line, it will be wrapped into the brackets. Okay, now we need to render our component inside of application component, remove the course name and render the component. So it's the same, the syntax is the same as for normal HTML text. You have the brackets, you have the self-closing text, just one more difference. In JSX, every element you use should have self-closing text, or like you also can use it like this. But the syntax is shorter. Let's check what we have in browser. So you see the component is rendered, but we don't see an image. To download image, visit the link from the resources and open the first icon, which is the iPhone, and download the PNG. Okay, after it's downloaded, open your code base and you need to move this icon to the public folder. But before, create an images folder inside of the public folder and move your image here. Okay. So let's back to our application and restart it, and you see the image card, so everything works fine. So now you know how to create React component, how you name it, and see you in the next slide. Hi. In the previous lesson, we defined product card component in the same file with app component. And in this lesson, we will move it into separate component file. Normally, all components in React application are placed under components folder. Let's create it. Click on the source folder and click new folder. Provide a components folder name and create here the product card React component. .js. Pay attention, it also uses the Pascal case naming convention, so every word should be named from the capital letter. Okay, now we need to move implementation of product card component from app file to the created file. Okay, so let's think how to use it in the application file. To use it in the application file, we need to use export and import. So export allows us to provide an access to the component from that file to other files. So it's like share this component between other files. And import allows us to use a shared component in a specific files. So components can be exported in two ways. There is a named and default export. In our course, we will use the named export because it allows us to import multiple components from one file in case we need it, and it's strict in using the same names during the import. So I will show you an example about it later. Okay, now let's export the product card component. Just add an export and open application.js and at the top of the file add import. and you need to open bracket. It tells you that it's named import, and provide a product card component file name. So after we import it, let's open an application and check how it works. So after refresh, it works fine. But let's see how the named import is strict to the naming. Okay, let's imagine we do a mistake and name it product card. And after we save the file, we see that product card is not exported from the product card component. So it tells us about the mistake, and that is why it's safer. So let's back the name, the correct name of the component. So, and see you in the next lesson. Hi, in this lesson you will learn a JSX syntax. JSX syntax has several strict rules how to use it. Let's go through it. The first rule is you should return a single root element from React components. Because to return multiple elements from a component, you need to wrap them into a single tag. So let's look into our product card component, and you see there is a return statement and there is a JSX we return. And we have one parent component as article, so it's correct. But let's try to remove it and see if it's possible to return it. So, and you see it's the VS Code argue, and it shows an error for us, yeah. And if we hover in it, we see JSX expression must have one parent element. So let's back it. Okay, what is the reason for that? Yeah, and the reason for that is that having multiple top-level elements for a component can cause issues with rendering and synchronizing the virtual DOM with the real DOM. And by nesting all the elements within a single root element, like article in this example, React can manage the component structure more efficiently. They understand what is a parent node and where to render a component, and what node is responsible for update the components. Okay, but also there is a ready solution for it. How to don't use a parent node and use some like JSX sugar, let's call it that way. But I will share it in the lesson about fragment components in the next section. So the next rule is the close of the text. JSX requires text to be closed. For example, there is two types of text. There are self-closing text and wrapping text. The self-closing text, you can see example here. It's an image. It's a self-closing text because it doesn't require to write something like this. Yeah, it's not possible because image doesn't have any content. It's have only attributes. It doesn't have any children. And that is why it's self-closing text. But for example, paragraph, it's a wrapping text because it's wrap a content. Yeah. And for example, if you don't close the self-closing text, you also will see an error that JSX element image has no corresponding closing text. It is also important for JSX to have closing text. Okay. So the next rule is the camel case naming for props and attributes. Okay, as you know, in the HTML you can write some props through the defs, yeah. But in JSX, all of them should be camel case. The camel case is when the first word is like the lowercase and the next words are camel case. For example, we have a normal prop class in HTML. Class like this, yeah. But in JSX we don't use it. In JSX it's used as a class name, and this is an example of camel case naming. For example, if it has 3 words, no, it will look like this, yeah. Okay, and the camel case, why it's important for JSX, yeah. The reason for that JSX turns into JavaScript object, and attributes which are written in JSX become a keys of JavaScript objects. Also, in your own components, you will often want to read these attributes into variables, and use them. And that is why they choose the camel case naming concept for JSX attributes, because it's easier to convert to variables and keys of objects. Okay, but if you want to use a class name, you need to use this naming. It's because the class word is already reserved in JavaScript for other reasons. And also some other attributes also can be like tab index. It's used for buttons. To set the tab order, it's also used like this. Yep. Okay, and we almost finished. Also, if you have some troubles to convert in HTML to JSX, you can use the JSX converter. I will share it in the resources. And as you see here, you have in the left side, you have some HTML, and in the right side, you see how it's converted to JSX. Okay, see you in the next lesson. Hi, in this lesson, you will continue to learn JSX. The main benefit of JSX is that it allows you to write an HTML markup inside of JavaScript functions and use all the variables inside of this HTML-like markup. And sometimes you will want to add a bit of JavaScript logic or display some markup dynamically. In this situation, you can use curly braces in your JSX to open a kind of a window to a JavaScript world. So, there are several main use cases for using curly braces. The first one is when you want to use a variable inside of a markup, or you want to pass a property from variable to component or some HTML tag, or you want to call a function in an HTML markup. So, in all those use cases, you should use curly braces to open a window to JavaScript. Okay, let's move all the product data you see in the HTML markup into variable and render it in JSX via curly braces. Okay, I will create product object. Okay, the first we have image source. Okay, we also have title, the product title. We also have specification. Okay, it will be array of items because we have a few features in the specification. Okay, and we also have price. Okay, let's define it like here and now move the values. Okay, it is the image source. It's a title. It's a specification items. It will be array of strings. Okay, and move this one and move the price. So now we have a product variable and we need to use it. So let's try with the title. Okay, open a portal to JavaScript and just type product title. Okay, and about image is the second use case when we need to use a prop. Yeah, and just type product image source. Also for alt we use product title. So for the specification we will use array elements. Let's type product specification and paste the first element. Okay, copy paste it here and just change the indexes. So and I'll render product price. Okay, let's save it and see a refresh page and you see everything looks exactly the same. It means everything works. Okay, now let's check how we can call a JavaScript function inside of the JSX. Let's imagine we have a function get product title and that function returns product title and call this function instead of a title. So call like a normal function. Refresh page, it looks the same, the title is correct, but we also can pass in props. Let's imagine we pass title here, and then we need to pass product title. So everything is easy. Refresh page, it looks the same. Okay, so I will remove, I will back to using just a title from prop because we don't need a function. Okay, so everything is clear, but can you imagine there is a case when you need to use double curly braces. For instance, when you want to specify styles in a style attribute. But pay attention, we need to use a camel case to define props for style attributes. Okay, I don't like how it looks like. I want to add some styling for the parent tag like article. I type style, type double curly braces, and we'll specify some styling to make look it nicer. Okay, solid border. Okay, also want to add border radius. Okay, border radius. Let's set it 8 pixels. Also add some padding inside, like 16 pixels. And also align all the text by center. Okay, let's save it. Let's check. Okay, the border is not applied. Solid. Yeah, because we need the third attribute should be color. Okay, now it's fine, but the list looks ugly. Let's fix it. Let's also add some style to the list. We need to mention list style none, and also remove padding. Okay, so now it looks much nicer. And you may ask why we use in that case double curly braces, but the answer is simple. So the second brace is needed to define an object structure. So if we move the styles into variable, like const style, and so let's move it here and paste it here. You see we use only once the braces, and the style is the same. A refresh page, it looks the same. But let's back it for now. So it is because the second brace is used to define an object. Okay, see you in the next lesson. Welcome to the Add-in Interactivity section. Here you will learn how to share data between components using props and manipulate them inside of the component. Also, you will learn how to respond to events and pass event handlers as a prop to other components. You will get to know how to dynamically show or hide elements inside of the markup depending on the conditions. Also, you will learn how to display array of data as a list in React, and what is a fragment component and why they need it. See you in the lessons! In this lesson, you will learn how to pass props into components. React components use props to communicate with each other, and every parent component can share some data or some information with the child component by giving them props. Props are very similar to HTML attributes, but they allow to pass any JavaScript value like text, numbers, objects, arrays, or even functions. And I also want to remind you that all React components are functions, and it means you can also pass React component as a prop. So let's see how it works in practice. The first, we will move our product variable into application, into parent component to pass it as a prop. Let's cut it and open app.js file and pass it here. So now we need to share it with the product card component. Do you remember it's the syntax the same as the attribute, so we just specify the prop name we want to use. I will call it product and pass product variable here. And now we need to open product card component and read these props. So all props you pass through a component are grouped into one object, which is provided as the first functional argument, and I call it props. So, and to use product from props, we just need to type product.props.product, props.product image source, and access it. So as you see, it's easy. And it doesn't matter how many props you pass to component 1, 2, 5, 10 props, all of them will be grouped under one object, which you can call props. Okay, now we pass all the props. Let's open an application, refresh and check, and you see nothing changed. It means everything works. So, okay, that's fine. Do you remember I told you that you can pass React components as a props? So the time has come. There is a reserved prop children you can use for it. Okay, we will create a new component. It will be the product list component. We need to export it. It will be a function with name product list. It will get some props inside, and we will return a JSX. So it will be the div container, and inside we will render props.children. So .children. Okay, and now we need to back to our application, import this product list component because we're gonna use it here. Product list component, and just wrap the product card into product list component. Everything you pass between component tags will be a children you can use. Let's back to browser and check. You don't see changes, but we need to inspect the page. You can click your right mouse button and click inspect to see the page content, and you see there's our product card, and this is the product list. So it just wrap it as a div. So let's add few more product cards. I just duplicate it and back to the browser, and now you see the 3 elements rendered in the list. So, but I don't like how they look like. Let's add some styling to them. Open the product list and add some styling. Okay, I want they will be in the one line, and I will use display flex for it. And also I will add some spacing between items, like 16 pixels. Okay. Okay, it looks better, but let's make them the cards wider. Okay, open the product card and add width 100%. So now it looks much nicer. Okay. I also want to talk with you about props immutability. It means that you can change your props directly from the component. So if you need to change props, for example, in case of user interaction or when your data come, component needs to ask its parent component to change props and pass updated values. So then the children component prop will be also updated, and React will render a children component to display new values, for example, if they use in the markup. But don't worry if it sounds difficult to you, because we'll go through it deeper in the managing state section. So see you in the next lessons. In this lesson, you will learn how to manipulate props inside of component. I want to show you how to write a briefless code when you use your props. You can use for that JavaScript destruction feature, which allows you to unpack properties from objects or values from arrays. To use destruction, you need to use curly braces and add inside props which you want to unpack. Okay, we want to unpack a product from props, product, and then we can remove props. And if we save it and refresh page, we see everything the same. It means it still works. So, but what destruction do under the hood? Let's imagine we have still props here, and destruction create variable product and get it from the props product. In that way, you can use your product variable. Let's back code to the previous. So, and using this structure, you can write less code. Let's talk about default values. You're able to set default values to props in case you don't want to pass anything from the parent component. It can be useful when you have a value which is used really often in your application and you don't want to pass it every time. We have value background, and for that value we'll set a default value ground. We will set the color, which is the slate gray, and we will use the background in styling for the product card. Now open application and add background for some product cards. For the first product, we will use background which is dark olive green, and for the third one we will use Peru. We didn't add background for the second product because we want it will use the default value. And if you go to the browser, you see every product has a background. If you inspect an element, you will see the first has a dark olive green, the second has a slate gray background, which is a default value, magic, and the third one uses Peru. So it's fine, it's what we want. But remember, default value is only used if the prop is missing, or if you pass it as undefined. When it missed, we just don't provide it, and if you don't provide it, it is by default undefined in JavaScript. So, are you interested to know what else you can do with props? For example, you can pass multiple or even all props into component at once, only if the names of your props exactly the same as another component expects them. So let's do it on a practice. Okay, we will pass width and height for an image in product card component. Let's make it 96 pixels. Okay. 96 pixel. I will copy it for the rest and we'll update it. For the second it will be 64 and for the last one it will be 129. 128. Okay, let's save it. Now we need to open product card component and use these props. For example, to don't type width, height, and don't pass it every time. Okay, we can write it shorter. Yeah, we can use the one variable to do it. We just need to add 3 dots and call the variable as we want, like rest props, because the rest props. Here we use rest parameters feature, which pack all not destructed variables into object or array. In our case, the rest props will be an object with width and height. And let's pass now this prop into image. We remove these props and we open curly braces, also use 3 dots and pass rest props. In that case, we use spread operator feature, which unpack objects into individual elements. It's really similar to destruction, but it unpacks all props automatically. And as a result, you will get 2 values, width and height, which will be the equivalent as you see here. But let's check it still works. So you see, it works, it's fine. Now you know how to use props destruction, how to provide default values, and how to forward all props into components. See you in the next lesson. Hi, in this lesson you will learn how to respond to events and how to pass them as a prop children components. Responding to events is a very important topic, because user interface built on user interactions with it. For instance, user change input value in form, send this form, click on any button on the page, and other. All of these are user interactions. And in this lesson we will start with simple example of the button click event. But don't worry. In the creating to-do list section you will learn more events. So let's display product title and its price when user click on buy button. For that we will need to create a handler function and then pass this handler function to the button component. So let's do it. I will create handler function inside of the React component and call it handle click. There is a good practice to name a handler function with prefix handle. There is a good practice to name handler function with handle prefix, which make it clear to everyone this function is handling event. Okay, create a function. So we expect this function will accept product, and we will display a message to a user, like you clicked on product which cost price. Okay, now we need to display variable inside of the string. We will use the string interpolation to do it, and we need to wrap our variables into curly braces and add dollar symbol before it, like this. As you see, the syntax highlighted with a different color. Okay, and we product title, and here we add dollar. You see $2 because we need this with dollar symbol because it's a currency, and here provided product price. Okay, now let's add a handler function to button. To add it, we will use the onClick event attribute. And in JSX, all events are camel cased and start with the on prefix. So let's pass this handler function, handle click, and pass product. Let's save it and switch to browser. So we see the message immediately displayed, but we didn't click on the button. What is going wrong? The problem is that we passed event handler in the wrong way. So if we pass it that way, it will be immediately executed after a rendering component. To fix the situation, we need to wrap it into function, and then it will be passed and trigger it when the user clicks on a button. Let's save it. So the message is not gone. I will open a website in a new tab and close the previous one to fix any problem. And now when I click, you see it's an iPhone with price $19.99. It's also a phone with the same price. So did you notice it works, but it displays the same price? To fix it, we will add 2 new products. For that, open application component and rename our product to products, and wrap an object into array. Okay, I will add 2 new products. The first one is the AirPods and Apple Watch. And now we need passing it to a product card component. We have products and we need to pass the first component, then the second component, and the third component. It starts from 0 because array indexation starting from 0, not from the first. 0, it means it's the first element. Okay, let's save it. Update our page. We see, okay, event works. Yeah, we see different naming and different prices. It's fine, but we don't see any images. So just download new images for the Apple Watch. Click download, and now download image for AirPods. So after we download it, we need to move them into images folder, the same as where we see the iPhone image, and just paste it here, open a website, and now we see it's fixed. So nice. Now imagine we need to know which product is selected in the parent component. And to do it, we will need to pass a handler function from the parent component to the children. Let's open the product card component and move this function implementation into application component. Now we need to pass it to every product card. Because it's our custom prop, we can specify any name we want for this event handler, for this event prop. I will use also onClick and pass it that way. So here we don't need prop into function because we don't pass any props inside. So we can just pass a function in itself. That's all. But in case if we want to pass props here, we need to wrap it into function. Just remember it. And I will do it for all products. Okay, let's set it here and here. Okay, fine. Now inside of the product card component, we need to read this prop. You remember we use a destruction and just type the name of the function. And here we just replace the handle click on the on click. Let's check it. So, okay, the price is correct. The price is also correct. Yeah, and now we see an access to the what product is selected in the parent component. And this is the example how we can pass an event handler to the children component. So we also can specify our custom name for this event handler. Let's name it as an on purchase. And rename the handler function also handle purchase for the consistency. Okay, and rename it here. So, and also update it for the rest product card components. Okay, I'm lazy, I will copy paste it. And now open product card component and also rename it to on purchase. And the same here. And click save, refresh page and check that everything works. So congratulations. So in this lesson you learned how to respond to events and how to pass events handlers from the parent component to children components. See you in the next lesson. Hi. As a React developer, you will often need to display multiple similar components from collection of data. And in this lesson, you will learn how to use JavaScript array methods to manipulate an array of data. You will use filter and map methods with React to filter and transform your array of data into an array of components. But before we start, we need to do some preparations. We're going to remove some props because to use them with list, we will need to do some additional code, and I don't want to focus on it. We're removing width, height, and background props here. So, and now open product card component. So the background default value we will use. I like that color, but the rest props for the width and height we will remove and provide some default values here. As you see, we also can provide width and height as numbers. Okay, fine. Let's check everything still works. Yep. Nice. Okay, back to app component and let's render our products using map method. First, open window to JavaScript world, type products and call the map method and open brackets because it's calling a method. So this method on every iteration returns us element. We will call it as product and we'll use arrow function and return a product card and pass here a product. And now we can remove the rest of the components. So map method iterate every item in array, and on every iteration it returns that item, and we can use it to render it in a component or some different way. Also about arrow function, we use it because it has a short syntax. It also immediately returned JSON, and we shouldn't provide open brackets, use expression return, so it's much easier to use. Okay, and let's implement the same way of rendering in the product card for specification. Okay, we will iterate product specification, call also map function, and our item will be named as spec, and we will return the element and render spec as a text and remove the rest. Now back to the browser and check everything works. So cards looks beautiful, nice. Okay, now I want to show you some errors in the console. Let's open it. And you see two error messages that each child in the list should have a unique key prop. We have two errors because we have two lists, one for product cards and one for specification, and key props means that React want to have some unique identifier for every item in the list. Why React needed? This key prop help React to identify that item among other items in the list, also remember that item and render it only in case if that item have been reordered, deleted, or changed. Otherwise, it won't be rendered for the performance optimization reasons. So it means like if you change something in the item 2, only that item should be rendered, but not other items. Because the rendering process takes some time for React, and for the performance optimization, React require key prop. And now I show you how to use it. Let's open application component. So normally key prop should be unique identifier, and in our case we can use title because it's unique. But in your work projects, you mostly will use IDs because it's a unique identifier for an element. But I will use title. For my application, it's unique. So product title. Okay, and save. And as we back, you see one error should gone, and we have it for specification. So normally in key, you shouldn't use some keys which change, like don't use any random numbers, because the key should be always stable and be the same for each of element, because we have to remember it for the whole life cycle of the component. Let's implement it for the product specification. We don't have any item, and we can use an index. It's not a good practice to use index as a key prop, because if you have an array of items which will be reordered or some items can be deleted, then the index of the element could be changed, and React can render the wrong element. So that is why it's better don't use it. But in our case, specification items won't be changed, and I'm pretty sure, and I can use an index. So map method to return as a second element the index, the position element in the array. It's like 0, first, second, third, and for our use case we can use it. Also, and fresh page and error gone. Okay, let's close console, back to our application, and let's check how to filter elements. Imagine we want to filter only products that cost up to $500, and we should then display the AirPods and Apple Watch. How to do it? Okay, let's render title, products which cost up to $500. Now we will render them in a full list, and let's iterate products map. What we will need title and price. I will use a destruction to don't call product every time. Use an array function, and I will return the element where I will render title and price. Okay, something wrong here. It's because I forgot to add brackets here, and here I use the wrong brackets. Okay, and I need one more brackets. Okay, let's check. This bracket should be removed, and yeah, now it's correct. Okay, when we do destruction, we need to wrap it inside of the brackets, circle brackets. So, and here you see we render the element with title and price. iPhone cost. Okay, let's render it. We see now all the elements. Let's filter them. We will use filter method. Open also brackets, and filter method also on every iteration return as a product, an element of the array. And I will use also destruction to get price. And in the filter, we should return true or false. For example, if for element will return true, it will be displayed, but if not, it won't be displayed. So, and we need to write condition that way that the products which cost up to 500 returns true. And I type product less than 500. Update, and now we see only two products which is cost up to 500. So this is how filter method works. So see you in the next lesson. Hi, in this lesson you will learn what is the fragment components and why we need them. Ready? As you might remember from the previous lesson about writing markup with J6, J6 has strict rules. One of them is to return a single root element. And fragment components allow you to group elements without a wrapper node in the situations where you need a single element. Let's see in practice what I mean. Open product list component and imagine we want to display product's title above the list. So we want to display a title here. And I want it will be inside of the product list component because it relates to list. And we will add a h2 products. We also need to wrap it into brackets. And now we see an error that J6 expression must have one parent element. Normally what we do, we normally wrap it into div element, but it doesn't make any sense, it's not needed. And to use fragment component, we just delete everything inside of brackets in the tag. And it's the short syntax of the fragment component we can use. And let's check to the browser. We have title and list. And if we inspect the element, we will see it doesn't have any wrapper. So fragment component is not rendered and it's visible only for React. Okay, let's talk about the another use case. Back to our code editor and open application.js component and look into the list for the product cost. And imagine we'd like to have some dividers between the elements in a list. Like normally how we do it, we add an HR element, and we don't need O list because it won't be a list, and we can rename lead tag into P. But also wrap it into empty fragment component. Okay, we save it, we see it works fine, but we have one error message. This error about the each child in a list should have unique key prop. And let's add key prop. Key, what it will be, the title, and we see that the keys declared is value is never it, so it means that this fragment component cannot accept the key prop, so it just not exist. And for that case, we have a fragment syntax, which will be a component from React library. We just need to import fragment from React and use it here. And now we can specify the key prop. It is exactly the same empty component as previous, but just the difference in the syntax. If you write it as a fragment, it can support a key prop. And now if we update page, we see error is gone. And if we inspect it, we see we have a title, HR, paragraph, again there's the divider, and again the paragraph. Let's add also a bit of styling here. I want our divider will be another color, and we need to use border color, and we will use slate gray color. And now we see it's not so contrast. Okay, now you know what is the fragment components, how to use it, and you know the popular use cases for it. See you in the next lesson. Hi, in this lesson you will learn how to render your component markup conditionally. What I mean? In J6 you can display or hide different elements depending on different conditions. For example, you might want to display a list of elements only if the list is not empty. And if it's empty, just display message list is empty. Or another example, you might need to display different content. One for logged in user and another one for guest. So let's look at some of the ways you can render items conditionally. Imagine you have a limited number of products which are available, and you need to display which products are not available, or in case if it's available, how many items user can buy. Above the buy button, we will display status, product available or not. Let's create status component for it. Let's do it below. So I will type function, call the component status, and we will get here the stock count. It's the number, how many items are available. Okay, and let's back for the main application file and add the stock count. Stock count, for example, we have 10 iPhones. We have 0 AirPods, they so popular, and for example 6 Apple Watches. And now we need to render, for example, if stock count is 0, we'd like to display, let this be paragraph, not available. And otherwise, we will return message that number of items available. But if this condition will work, it will return this message and the logic won't go further because component can have only one return. But if the condition won't work, we will return this part by default. And let's now render status and pass stock count, product, stock count. Let's save and check. Okay, we see 10 items available, not available, and 6 items available. Okay, let's add some styling to make look it nicer. I open style. First, let's set a font size and make it a bit smaller, like 14 pixels, and also set color as light salmon. So, and do the same for the items available message, but the color should be a bit different, and we will use light green. and save it. Okay, now it looks nicer and more UX friendly. Okay, let's imagine that we want to display only message if the product is not available, and don't display how many items available. In that case, we can return here as null, and then it won't be displayed. But I will back this code because we will need it. So let's optimize our code to have only one return. I mean, having only this return, and here we can use the ternary operator, which is easy. For the condition, we want return first if it's true. We write after the question mark, and then we write this symbol and move this condition here and remove the top part. So now you see that, okay, if the stock count is 0, we display the first expression. If not, we display the second expression. And we see it still works after updates page. Okay, nice. To make it look cleaner, let's assign these parts of JSX into variables. So let's create variable variable not available template and save here the first message and available template and save here the second part of the message. And now we can use the variables. And it will make code a bit cleaner and more readable. So uncheck, it still works and it's fine. But did you notice that we display buy button if the product is not available and users still can buy it, which it shouldn't be? And to hide this button, we need to wrap it into braces and add a condition. For example, if our product stock count is more than 0, then we display that button. And we use this symbol. It makes, if this condition is true, then we display this message. It's kind of shortcut. And we see we don't display a button here. So in this lesson, you have learned the different ways of display JSX parts conditionally. See you in the next lesson. The styling in React section. Here you will learn more about different styling options you can use in React. I will share the difference between inline styles, CSS files and CSS modules, global CSS, what are the pros and cons of each of these options. You will also get to know more about the alternatives, such as Sass preprocessor, styled components, style win CSS, and when they might be useful. See you in the lessons. Hi. In this lesson, you will learn more about inline styles in JSX markup, their pros and cons. As you already know, inline styles in JSX also use HTML style attribute, as you see here, and it's wrapped in double braces. So the outer braces open a window to the JavaScript world, and the inner braces define an object structure, and also CSS props written in camel case naming convention, as you see at the border radius and text align. Okay, let's learn more about inline styles. If you have a lot of inline styles, like in our project, also the status component has some inline styles, you can move them into variable. And I will show you how to do it. I will create a styles variable outside of the React component because it will be static and it won't be changed. Styles, and we'll add here our styles. Container. I will use this for the container. Also, I will need a list. I will move here list styles. Okay, I need also not available status. Not status, and I need available status. Okay, and I move here all the props we have. And available status. Okay, and let's use it here. So we will use stylus dot container because it's a variable. Stylus is an object, and container it's the children inside of the object. And the same we will do for list. And now for stylus not available and stylus available status. Okay, and now I will expand everything. So, and also we see an error about the background because we can't pass variable here. So we just remove it and provide here in the component directly. We will wrap it into additional object, and we will use spread operator to unpack our styles and just then add a background prop. Save it. So let's check if it still works. You see, nothing changed. It works fine. So we organized all our inline styles into one variable. It's easy to access it from the component, and also we don't pay our attention towards the style, so we can more focus on the code. Let's do the same for the rest of the components. I will just copy paste it to don't spend a lot of time on it. Stylus list. And now go to the application component because we also have some styles here, and paste it and use it here for the divider. Stylus list divider, and here for stylus list title. Okay, I will save it, so also save the list component and refresh page. You see everything the same. Okay, let's now talk about the pros and cons of this approach. So the first advantage of this approach is that you can quickly prototype your website or interface using inline styles. You don't spend a lot of time on it. And the next benefit of using the inline styles is you can use dynamic variables, some dynamic styles. As you see, we can easily pass here as a variable with a background. Let's now switch to the concerns and what is the disadvantages has this inline style approach. So I will switch to the separate project. Inline styles can quickly become messy and disorganized. It's totally not recommended for large projects and projects which has a lot of code. As you see here, like a lot of styles, and all your attention is to styles, not for the code. And let's imagine your project is really big and you have really a lot of styles. It's also very difficult to maintain. The next disadvantage of it, inline styles doesn't support many CSS features. One of them is pseudo classes like hover effect, focus, placeholder of input, and etc. Pseudo classes, and also doesn't support pseudo elements like before, after, and others. So it means you won't be able to style some hover focus effects or some pseudo elements. So the third disadvantage of it is that you are not able to use complex selectors like in CSS. You won't be able to reach in inline styles some input component, which is the children of another component and which has type text or type password. Or also you're not able to reach some sibling of the component. It's not possible with inline styles. The next the disadvantage is inline styles doesn't support media queries. If you need to make a responsive website and set different styles for different dimensions of the screen, so it's also not possible. So also, inline styles doesn't support keyframes animation. Keyframe animations is used for more complex animations. Also, the disadvantage of inline styles, it's difficult to override it. Like have a component which has some inline styles like width, height, background, and padding. Let's imagine we need to override them from the parent component. Here we use a child component and there is a parent container. So let's switch to CSS, and to override the children styles we need first reach the children element and then set the style and add important word because without important it won't override it. So the next disadvantage is if you will inspect your application or interface, you will see your HTML is really messy. And if you need to debug your HTML to find something, it will be more messy and more difficult to do. Also, the performance of the inline styles can lead some issues, especially if some styles recalculated really often. You can see problems with the speed of your application. So I hope in this lesson you learned much more things about inline styles, and see you in the next lesson. Hi, in this lesson you will learn more about CSS files, how to use it in components, about their pros and cons. Let's start with some recommendations. Always try to keep your styles for every component in separate file. It will help you import only needed styles and components and keep CSS files cleaner. As we have for our app component, we have separate file with styles, app.css. Also, CSS file name should have the same name as component, and it will be much easier to identify it. The CSS file should be placed in the same folder as components. It will help you faster find it. So this is here, it's close to each other. Also, I personally name CSS classes in Pascal case naming convention. It makes class names more readable, like we see here. Okay, now let's switch our code to using CSS classes and CSS files. I will remove styles object here and will create product card CSS file. And we'll paste here some predefined styles. And I can remove now the object. I need first import my styles, product card.css. And now remove them, all variables we use here. So we don't need this style, we don't need style also for template, for the status components. And now let's add it. The class name for the main article will be the container. For the list, class name will be a specification. And here also add a class name not available status, and let's copy it and paste here, and just leave the available status. Let's switch to the browser, check everything works. Okay, something doesn't work with the list. Specification, yeah. Now it works fine. So I will do the same for the product list and application component, and you will see the ready result. As you see, I already updated the class names for the application and also added it here. And for the product is the same, I created CSS file and updated the class name. So now if we switch to our application, we see everything works the same. So this approach has a lot of advantages. The CSS files support all CSS features I mentioned in the previous lesson: the keyframes animation, complex selectors, media queries, etc. Also, if styles defined in CSS files can be reused across multiple components, which reduces duplication. If you have some styles which are similar to few components, you can import this file in few components and just reuse. Also, for larger projects, CSS files can be easier to maintain. That's because styles centralized and can be changed without changing the component code. As we see, it's a separate file and we don't need to change our component. So let's switch to the disadvantages. Styles in CSS can lead to some conflicts or unexpected side effects if class names are not managed properly, especially in large code base. For example, if you have few similar class names in different files, you forgot about it, and then can override styles of each other. Also, by default, the CSS files do not provide scoped styles, and they can affect other components accidentally. And you will need to always have unique classes, because if you have a large project, it's more difficult to remember what classes you have, and you can accidentally override something. Also, Also, CSS classes doesn't support dynamic styles. And if we switch to our product card component, and you see we are not able to pass the background here, and we still use inline styles. Hope you learned more about CSS files. Now you know all the pros and cons of this approach, and see you in the next lesson. Hi, in this lesson you will learn more about CSS modules, how to use it in components, see pros and cons. CSS modules allow you to write styles in CSS files and use them as JavaScript object in your components for additional processing and safety. Also, CSS modules has one important benefit, which most of other approaches doesn't support, and I will tell you about it a bit later. Let's see now how to use CSS modules. To use it, we just need to rename our file and add an additional word module before extension. Now we need to import it as a styles object from the same file, and to use it we will use the styles.container, almost the same as with inline styles, but with more benefits. Okay, let's do the same for specification. Just copy styles and do also for status. Okay. Now we need to add module here. Save page, refresh, and see it works exactly the same. I will do the changes for the other files and you will see a result. I already finished. As you see, I also imported the styles in application component and replaced it everywhere for the styles app, class name, and for the list divider and list title. And as the same I do for the product list, I renamed it with the model word. And also in a component imported this as a styles and use it as a styles.list. And now let's refresh our page. It works exactly the same as we expected. Okay, nice. Now let's talk about pros and cons of CSS modules. They have all the same benefits as have CSS files. Additionally, CSS modules automatically scope styles to the component and they prevent some global style conflicts. This helps to don't override other component styles, as we could have this issue in CSS files. Also, class names in CSS modules dynamically generated and unique. I will show you. If you inspect our elements, you will see a bit weird class names for our components. The product list, dash some hash, the same for the product card. It's because CSS modules have unique class names to don't override other styles, and they add as a prefix the component name and also at the end add some hash, which unique and help to have unique class names. Okay. CSS modules has also some concerns. They not allow you apply some dynamic styles based on state or props. As you see here in the product card component, we are not able also pass the background here, so we use it as a style. Also, setup process of CSS modules may require additional configuration in the build process. For example, we need to use Webpack or some other tools which can add additional complexity to the project setup. But don't worry, for React project created via create React command, it's already pre-configured, so it's only for projects which you write from the scratch. Hope you learned in this lesson more about CSS modules. You now know all the benefits and disadvantages of it, and see you in the next lesson. Hi, in this lesson you will learn more about global CSS styles and about situations where you might need to use them. When I talk about global styles, I mean some global file which is placed in the root of your application. In our case, it's index.css file. And the first case, you can here define some styles for HTML text. Like for body, it's global because it will apply to all the components, all the pages. You can define here some font family, font size, some margins. Also, you can set styles for different text like headings, paragraphs, and etc. The second use case, you might need to use some normalize or reset libraries, which will do reset of your CSS styles. Normally, it resets some margins, reset some heading font size, and do reset for all other elements. And you can also include it in this file at the top, or just like pick parts you want and just copy paste here. Okay. Also, you can define some CSS variables here. I will show you on the example with Bootstrap. You might need to have some color variables and use them through your application. And you can define these variables in your global file and then use it. It can be not only color, some spacing, breakpoints, etc. Also, you can define here in some utility classes, and these utility classes will have some predefined styles, and when you write one class, it applies all the needed styles to some element. Also, in the main file, you can integrate here or use some third-party libraries like Bootstrap, Tailwind, Normalize CSS, which has some predefined styles they need to use. So this is the file where you do some global stuff which affect all the application. And then in the component file styles, you can do only things which affect your component. Hope you learned more about global CSS styles. Now you understand all the use cases, and see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, I will give you a quick overview of other popular styling options, which you also can use in your projects. We will start with Sass preprocessor. It's a very popular preprocessor that extends CSS with features like variables. I will show you. You can define your variables kind of in CSS, but it's a bit flexible, and use it through all the files or in your other application parts. You also can do nesting. You can nest your selectors in other selectors. CSS doesn't allow you to do it. You can also split your files on partials and import it. Also, you can use some mixins. It's kind of functions where you can pass props and then use these props. And also it has some arrays. It also has some loops like for each and etc. So it's a really powerful tool and it really extends the capabilities of your CSS. It offers many useful features and makes styling more efficient. However, Sass comes with learning curve and requires the configuration of additional tools. You probably will need to configure your Webpack and some other configuration files to use it properly. But it's very popular among other developers. So let's switch to the styled components. Styled components allow you to write CSS in JavaScript files. It means you can use all the features of CSS like media queries, pseudo selectors, nesting, and much more. As you remember, inline styles, which we used in variables, it's a bit similar, but much more flexible. For example, here you define your title component and you can already set styles to it, and then you can use it as React component. So it's really easy. Also, you can use props. You just pass some props and you can use it here, and even do some conditions. If props true, you use one color. If it's false, you use other color. You can also extend your styles, like you have button, but you want tomato button with a different color, and you just like extend it and override colors. Styled components provide a really powerful and flexible approach to styling React applications and allowing style encapsulation and dynamic styling. But on the other hand, they can reduce performance of the application, because all the styles rendered in the head of HTML page, and it could slow first rendering of your application. Also, it requires more time to learn how to use all these features. Now let's talk about Tailwind CSS. Tailwind CSS offers a very different approach, where there is no need to write CSS to style an application. Instead, Tailwind CSS use utility classes for each CSS property that you can use directly in your HTML. As you see here, I write the property for padding, for example, for make corners rounded, to some margin auto, alignment, some font sizes, and it changes how the page look like. So this is the idea of the Tailwind CSS. As you see, it has different sets of the predefined utility classes for width of your blocks, some colors, a lot of colors. As you see, also for some typography classes, for shadows and others. Tailwind allows you really quickly build user interface, and it can be a valuable tool for projects where speed and ease of use are top priorities. But it has some downsides, such as high learning curve to start to use it, because you need to understand all these shortcuts, what it means, and also every developer come to your projects also need to learn it. Also, this utility class increase HTML size, and when you will inspect your HTML, you will pay most of your attention to these utility classes, not to the main content. Also, Tailwind CSS has some limited design flexibility. Probably not everything you can do with a Tailwind. Hope this quick overview was useful for you. Now you know what other styling options exist, what they mean, and see you in the next lesson. Welcome to the Managing State section. Here you will learn what is a component lifecycle and component state. You will get to know what's the difference between props, component state, local variables, and when to use them. You will learn how to manage component state using a useState hook from React, and how to perform multiple state updates in one event. See you in the lessons. Hi. In this lesson, you will learn what is component state and component lifecycle. It's really important to understand how it works before using some of React hooks. Let's start with component lifecycle. Each React component lives on page for some period of time, and it goes through 3 stages: mounting, updating, and unmounting. In other words, you can call the stages as birth, growth, and death of the component. Let's start with mounting stage. This stage is called when component is added to the DOM, or in other words, when it's rendered on the page. The updating stage is triggered each time after component prop or component state changes. And after the changes happen, component will display the updated information on the page. This process is called re-rendering. Then mounting stage is called before component is removed from the DOM. And once component removed from the DOM, the component state is also cleared. So React is smart. When component is removed from the DOM, it's not needed anymore, and React clear all the component state. Okay. Looks clear? Let's go now to the component state and learn what is it. Component state is a special JavaScript object that can store data inside of component. Also, component state can be changed during the life cycle of the component. And also, one component is unmounted, the state is destroyed. It's what I told before. So, if we back to our scheme, the component state is lived from the mounting stage till the unmounting stage. And on the updating stage, component state is updating. Okay, let's now see what's the difference between component state and component props, because they look similar, but it's really important to also understand the difference. You see parent component and children components, and each of these components has state. State is encapsulated to a component. Other components can have access to the state till the component won't share the state with them. Okay. And here appears props, and let's see the difference. Props is a data shared from the parent component to the children component. It's like instruction given from parent component to its children, guiding them on what to display or how to behave. Props can be changed directly in the component. And state is a local component data. They used to manage the component internal details and can be changed at any time. Now you know more about component lifecycle and component state. See you in the next lesson. Hi, in this lesson you will see the difference between component state and local variables. It's very important to understand the difference, so don't do mistakes a lot of beginners do at the beginning. Let's switch to application. I will show you what you will implement today. So, if user click on buy button, the number of available items should be updated and should display 9 items available. When I click one more time, 8 items available, so it's clear. Let's open application with product card component and create stock count variable to store the actual number of available items and assign product stock count the default value. Now we should use this variable in all places where we use product stock count. Just remove product dot. Okay. Now let's create a handler function. I will call it handle click. And when it will be clicked, I need to update stock count. Stock count -1. And also I need to call the onPurchase method. And I will use this handler function here. So, okay, nice. Let's also add console log to see the updated number, to be sure it works. Okay, I've saved it and switch to application, open the console and click. Okay, I clicked. You see the stock count variable is updated, but it doesn't display. Let's click one more time, the same result. Okay, there is a reason for that. Local variables changes doesn't trigger renders in React components. It means the data on the page won't be updated. And if you want your data will be updated every time, please use component state. Don't use local variables. Also, one more thing you need to know about local variables, their values don't store between renders. For example, if any of your text in a component updates and you have some local variable with a set value, it will be reset, because React doesn't store local variables values between renders. It's very important information. Okay, and now let's summarize. When you can use local variables, you can use them if you need to store static data, kind of information you will never change. And for internal component details, data that might change, better use component state. So now you know about it. See you in the next lesson. Hi, this lesson is about one of the most popular React hook, useState. React hooks are JavaScript functions that allow you to use some of React features, and they normally start with prefix use. And in this lesson you will learn about useState hook, which help you to manage state inside of components. Now let's see how it works. Open your product card component, and first we need to import useState hook from the React library. useState. And now let's define it. I will leave an old example to see the difference. And I first define it and then explain how it works. As you see, I call useState hook and it returns an array of items. And I use destruction to unpack these values to variables. And we have two items. The first one is the value and the second one is the method to set this value. And because of this destruction, you can name these variables as you want. And optionally, we can provide an initial value for this state. In our case, it will be the stock count from the product object. Okay, let's remove the old implementation and now update the value correctly. To update the value, we just need to call setStockCount method and provide a new value here. And just remove the console log because we don't need it anymore. Save and switch to application. Let's check how it works. So when I click on it, I see 5 items, now 4 items. Let's click more time. You see it updates the value. It's because the React hook, because the useState hook communicates with React well and it can update the value on the pages. So that's fine. Now let's see how to use few state hooks in one component. Imagine we want to hide this specification and display it only in case if user click on button show. Here near the specification will be button, toggle button, which will hide or show the specification. Okay, and now let's define the new state. I will call it show more. And the method to set it will be set show more. And value by default will be false. Okay, great. Now let's display button. We need to display different text in button depending on the state. And we write a condition. If show more is true, then we display height. And otherwise we display show. Okay, let's provide on-click handler. So when we click on it, we need to update the value. I will call the arrow functions to define a function here. And I will call the setter function and will set the opposite value. So if show more was true, it will be false because this symbol, like may the boolean value is the opposite. And okay, we see button works, but the specification is not hidden. It's because we forget to conditionally render it. And just add this condition here and save it. Okay, now we see it works fine. Just add a small space between specification and button. It's a small hack. I don't recommend to do it, but if you need it quickly for prototype, and it can be, and you see there is a small space. Okay, and when I click on it, I see it works. So small moment about hooks. It's isolated to a component where you created it. So mention like you'll render the same component 3 times, and each copy will have completely isolated state, and changing state in one component won't affect other components. So it's how the useState hook works in components. And also one more thing about hooks. I thought all hooks start with a prefix use, and all hooks should be defined at the top of your component. They cannot be defined inside of loops, inside of nested functions or some conditions. They should be defined only at the top of your component. This is how React hook works. So I hope you learned about useState hook, and see you in the next lesson. Hi, in this lesson you will learn how to perform multiple state updates in one event. Sometimes it can be an issue, so it's good to know how to do it. But before, let's do some preparation. We need to move price out from the bottom. Let's now define a paragraph to price and display our price here. And we remove it from the bottom. And we need to wrap it into empty tag, if you remember, yeah. Okay, we finished the preparation. Now let's see how to do multiple state updates. Okay, imagine we need to add a button to buy 2 products at once. Like here will appear a new button, buy 2, and when we click it, the number of available items will be reduced unto like person bought 2 iPhones or bought 2 Apple Watches. Okay, to do it, let's add a new button below. Button buy 2. Let's define on click and provide a new handler, handle to clicks. Okay, and now we need display this button when we have at least 2 products, and the condition will be the following: the stock count more than 1. So, and let's run the button. Okay, now let's define handle to clicks function. Okay, and to like buy two products, we will first go set the count once and then set the count the second time. And let's also add a console log what the stock count will be. Save it and switch to our application. So now we see button buy two. When we click it, we see it's a 5 items, it's not 4. Again, it reduced only on 1 item. What happens? Yes, it's interesting. Let me explain why it happens. So React doesn't update state immediately when you call it. It schedules an update for the next component render. React waits until all code in the event handlers has run before processing some state updates. And this approach helps optimize performance and reduce the number of component renders. Now let's go through every line and see how it works. So the initial stock count is for the let's update page for the Apple Watch is 6, and the initial value is 6. Yeah, and when we call it first time, what it do do 6 minus 1. The next time when we call this function, the stock count is still 6 because it doesn't update value immediately. Remember it. It's still 6 and we still call like 6 minus 1. And when we try to log it in a console, it's still 6 because it doesn't update the value. It waits till the all code will be run and only then updates the value. It's needed for performance optimizations. And to fix this situation, we can use the previous state. So there is 2 options how to call setter function. We can call it with a new value or we can call it with a function. It kind of callback function. And this callback function accepts as the first argument the previous state. Let's see. So you see it's accepted as a first argument. Just imagine it's in braces. So, and I can use it like I get the previous stock count and then I set previous stock count minus 1. And here I do the same. And the previous stock count will be 5 and now it will reduce 1. And then I remove the console log because it doesn't show the actual information, and when I click buy, you see it's reduced to items and it works correctly. Also, don't forget to update handle click method. My recommendation is always use previous state because it's more safer, and if you will work with an API or some dynamic updates in the different places of application, so it's this approach much safer. So now you know how to do multiple state updates in the correct way. So please follow my recommendation, use previous state all the time, and see you in the next lesson. Welcome to the Managing Complex State section. Here you will learn how to manage the complex state inside of your component using useState hook. How to correctly update objects or nested object inside of the component state, or how to add, update, and delete items inside of the array state. See you in the lessons. Hi, in this lesson you will learn how to correctly update object and nested object in component state. But first let's do some preparation. We need to create product filter component to demonstrate how to manipulate object states. And this component allows you to filter your products here based on a minimum and maximum price. So let's do it. Switch to your VS Code and let's create a new file. Product filter.js, and now create the component. I will paste the prepared code, and now I explain. You see the price tags, then you see the first input with the minimum price, the tags divider, and the maximum price. It's an input with type number and with minimum values as 0 and maximum 999 as our maximum price. So, and switch to application file. We need first import this filter component, import product filter, and now let's render it. Okay, we will render it here. And also now let's update also the title. The products filtered by price. Let's save it and switch to application. You see the filter, and now we can enter any numbers, so how it will work. Okay, let's now create state to store minimum price and maximum price. Switch to the application component. We need to import useState. Import useState. And now at the top we can do it after the products, so it's not a problem. I define filters state and the method set filters, and by default it will be an empty array. Okay, and now we need to pass filters to our product filter component, and when you open product filter component we need to read these filters. Okay, it won't be an array, it will be an object with values minimum price as 0 and maximum price as 999. So, and we now should read these values in our product filter. So I will set the default value to input with value filters minimum price and default value with maximum price. So, and now when I switch to our application, I see we have the default values. So let's now get the updated values from our input fields. I will use onChange event, and on this event I get the event prop as the first argument. It's object which contains the information about input, and I will console log event.target.value. So an event is our argument. It contains information about target element, its input in our case, and it has prop value. And for the second, for the maximum price, I will do the same. Okay, now let's switch to browser, open the console to quickly check, and if I enter here 1, 5, yeah, you see we get the updated value every time we paste a number. Okay, now we need to pass this value to the parent component every time the user enters a value. We also need to tell parent what value we are sending, its minimum price or maximum price. And for that we will use onFilter prop, which will be passed from the parent to our filter component, and it will take two parameters, name and value. Okay, let's first read the onFilter prop onFilter, and now I will call the onFilter instead of console log here. And as the first argument, we will send the name of the parameter. It will be minimum price. And the next argument, it will be the value. And the same we will do here, but it will be maximum price. Now we need back to our application component and define onFilter and pass here the handler function. It will be handle filter, and I will create now this function handler filter. It will accept two parameters, name, let's name it as key, and value. Now you will learn how to update the object state. To do this, you should use the previous state, because filter state has two properties, minimum price and maximum price. And at one time, we need to update only one of them. For example, our filter state has minimum price as 100 and maximum price as 900. And we need to update the maximum price to 500. And first we need to unpack our previous value, and then we need to override the maximum price and set the 500. I will show you. So we will call setFilters method. We will use previous filters. And now when we set it, we need to return, so I will call the braces, it just to, this is the equivalent to like kind of shortcut to don't use a returned word, because it's an arrow function, we can do it much easier. And here I unpack the previous filters, and now I need to set the new value. We know only the key, it's the minimum price or maximum price. And to convert it to the property name, we can use the square braces. It will convert it to the property name, and now we set the value. So let's save it and switch to our application. Refresh page. We need to open React Developer Tools, which we installed, and go to section Components. We click on Application, and here we have state. Yeah, you see this is a state, and it have maximum price and minimum price. And now when I update any of this, you see it's update in a state, it works. If I update the maximum price, you see it works. We need to filter the product list to update the values which we see here. Okay, to update the values, we will use this filter method, but we will paste here the real prices. So our price should be more than minimum price, more or equal, and our price should be less and equal than maximum price. But we need also get them from the filters object, as here. Now I refresh page and I set, for example, the minimum price. I need to set 550 to exclude the AirPods, and it works. For example, I want to exclude the iPhone and I just want to reduce it on 1. And if I set it to 300, I see nothing. Okay, and now you will learn how to update nested state. So the nested object, the example of nested object, imagine we will have some other filters here. Yeah, like, I know, let's call it other and other value. And we want to group our price into like parent. We will have price, and here we will have the minimum and maximum. So we have price object, inside of it we have minimum and maximum, and here we have the other filters. So, and we need to update the only minimum or maximum. So let's see how to do it. First we unpack all the previous filter state. We write here price. Then inside of the price, we need all previous filters price. And then here I define key and value. But also we need to update the path to our minimum maximum price inside of the product filter component. Here I will use price minimum. I will pass also the minimum. Here I pass the maximum name, and I update also pass for the maximum price. Let's back to application and also update it inside of the filter price minimum and price maximum. Let's save it and switch to the browser, check it works. Let's enter 250 and 400, so it works. Now you know how to update not only object states but even the complex object states. And if you have one more level here, you also need to use the previous filters.price. Another name, and then update the value there. So see you in the next lesson. Hi, in this lesson you will learn how to correctly add and delete items from array state. Now I have a question to you. What do you usually do when you find a product you like in the marketplace? I guess you mark it as favorite and save it. And in today's lesson you will learn how to implement this functionality, how to add product to a favorite list. Okay, I suggest to start with adding a favorite button. Please open a product card component, and at the top of your component add a button. The content of the button will be emoji. Please visit resources from the lesson and copy this white heart as an emoji. I will paste it. Also, we need to style our button. I will add a class name, stylus, and call the class name favorite. Okay, now let's switch to the product card styles, and somewhere at the top add styles for favorite button. I will copy paste it. Our favorite button will be displayed. I want it will be displayed by the right side, and that's why I make it position absolute, and also add some spacing from the top and from the right side, and also remove the background and border because it's the default styling for the button, and a bit increase the font size. But now to push it to work, we need to add a position relative to our container, save it, and now we see the favorite button. Now let's add a hover effect to the button, and when it's hover, so it will be increased in the font size, and a bit I reduce the spacing that it user will have a impression it's stay in the same place, and now it's make cleaner, it's clickable. Now let's create a state to store your favorite products. Please open application component and create an array state with name favorites and set the default value as an empty array to it. So I will do it after the filters const favorites, set favorites, and by default it will be an empty array because we don't have favorites now. So what we will store here? I recommend to store here only the product IDs. It's a product identifier. We don't have it yet. Let's add a kind of ID1, ID2, and ID3. It will be the identifiers of a product. You'll know what exactly product is a favorite. After we created a favorite, let's create a function handle favorite. I will do it at the bottom. Handle favorite. Here we will get the product ID, and it will be empty function for now. And inside of the product card, let's add a prop on favorite and pass here handle favorite. We need this function when user will click on the heart icon. We will call this function, and we will know what the product ID should be added or should be removed from the array. Now let's move to the product card component, and we need to read this prop on favorite. And when we click on a button, we need to call this method and pass here the product.id. Now let's implement handle favorite function, switch to the application component. We need to do two actions. If the product ID is already exists in the favorite list, it means user wants to remove it. But if it doesn't exist, we need to add it to the favorite list. So what we do, we first check if the favorite list has a product ID. If we remove it, as we add it. Okay, let's now add the favorite. We need to call set favorites. We also need to use the previous state. We will call it prev favorites. And now we need to set a new array. So we will unpack the prev values and set it to array, because we need to still keep all the previous values. And now we set a new product ID. And if we save it, switch to our browser and open the React Developer Tools. Click on the application component here, and you see this is the favorite state. And if we click, for example, on the first component, you see it's here. It was added. If I click on the second, you see it's also added. Okay, to remove the ID from the array, we also call set favorites. We call previous favorites. And now we need to return the previous favorites, but we will do it through the filter function. I will call it filter. I get ID here and return all the IDs which doesn't equal product ID. So let's save it and check. Okay, I click on the second item. Let's click again. It works. Now I click and it was removed. I click on a second, on a third, then click on a second again, and it was removed, you see. So it's fine. Now let's display visually its favorite or not. We need somehow tell to the component that is favorite. I suggest pass prop is favorite to the component, and what we will do, we will check if the ID is in the array. Oops, product.id. And now in the product card, we will read prop is favorite. And now we need to display different text. We just add a condition here, kind of the same as for show more button. If it's favorite, we display one emoji, otherwise we display a different emoji. And now let's switch to our emojis and click on a red heart, copy it and paste it here. And when we save it and refresh page and click on an item, we see it's liked. Now it's unliked, liked, and unliked again. So you see it works and it's beautiful. So nice. You learn how to add and delete items from array state, and see you in the next lesson. Hi, in the previous lesson you learned how to add or delete items in array state. Today you will learn how to correctly update items. So let's switch to application. When user clicks buy product, you update stock count in the component state. Let me show you. You have the stock count and it's a local state for the component. But the product's data defined in the application, I mean this product's data, has an outdated information about product. We're not updating that stock count prop. In this lesson you will fix it. So first let's do some preparation and we will move all these products data to a separate file in order to have more free space in the application component. I will create folder data and create file products.js. Now I cut the data, paste it here, and just add an export at the beginning. And in the application.js, we will import it. Let's do it at the bottom. Import products from data products. So now let's create product state. Let's do it at the top of the component. Const products, set products, useState. And we need to set products. But the small problem, we have the same names as the data we import products, and the state also calls products. We need to rename it. And to rename the import, we can use expression s, and let's rename it as products data. And set here products data. Fine. Now we need to open our product card component and remove stock count because we're not gonna use it. I will comment here calling of the setter method to remember we need to update it. And now everywhere I need to replace stock count on the product.stock count. I will use search and I added just product.stock count. We'll do it in all the places where we use it. Okay, looks fine. We do it. And let's now update stock count inside of the product state. First, you need to send a product ID and updated stock count inside of the on purchase handler. So when user click once, we will send a product ID and then we will send product stock count -1. It's the updated value, how many items should be. And in the handle 2 clicks, we do the same, but just send the value on 2 times smaller. And now we can remove these commented parts. Now let's back to application, and we see here handle purchase. The first argument will have it's a product ID and the next one stock count. And now we can remove this alert. To update the stock count inside of the product state, inside of array, you need to first go through all the items in this array and then check. If the product ID is the same we want to update, then you do update, otherwise you return the product as is. Let's go set products. Inside we will use the previous state of the products. And we return previous products.map. I will use map function because I will transform an array. And at the first argument we get product. And then we add a condition. If the product.id is equal to product ID we get, then we do an update. So it is an object and we unpack the product, and now we set an updated stock count. The stock count we get here as a second argument. Otherwise, if we just return product as is. Now let's switch to browser and check if it works. We need to open React Developer Tools. Click on application component, and this is our products. And let's open the first product. We see stock count is 10. After I click buy, you see it's updated. Now we see 9. If I click buy 2, we see 7. And for the last one, If I click byte 2, it's 4. Now it's 1, 3, 2, 1 items left. The same information is here, and now I click and it's 0. So everything works. Now you know how to update objects in the array state. And in this section you learned how to work with the complex states. So see you in the next lessons. Hello there! I just wanted to say a big congratulations on completing the beginner level of the React crash course. You have done so well and I am really proud of you. Now you should feel much more confident in your React skills. Let's take a moment to celebrate your achievement and quickly recap what you have learned. What is React and how to set up an application, how to create React components and write markup using JSX, how to share data between components and manipulate them, or how dynamically show or hide elements based on conditions and how to display collection of data, how to style components in different ways and what the pros and cons are, what are components lifecycle and component state, and how they different from the probes and local variables. And finally, how to manage component state and perform different operations on it, such as add, update, or delete some information. Congratulations on finishing the beginner level, and thank you for letting me be your React instructor. We will dive deeper into intermediate topic in the next section of this course in the future. Don't forget to come back and check for updates as some of new information may be added. And remember, keep practicing, experimenting, and have fun with React.